Hello and welcome to another powerful group SFT tapping event. This one is called Transforming Corporate Greed. It is a topic that is, well in my wheelhouse, a passionate interest of mine. I'm Marvin Schneider.
And I'm John Ford. Hi, everyone.
Here's the thing. Companies and businesses that produce things are they're a pretty core part of the collective interactions. And so when companies and those that run them start running amok, that's just really just a symptom of the ills of the broader collective. So, we are here, Jen, to uplift all of humanity, to bring people and the collective into higher consciousness. And it's very difficult to do that when a broad base of the collective is running amok, either in their profession or vocation or in the pursuit of wealth, profit, and power over purpose.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, all through history, the powerful people who have evolved into the CEOs and leaders have always ran the show. They've always directed politics and religion and stuff. So it's really important to break down that power construct.
We talk about corporations, these are the companies, and a lot of these are listed on the stock market, and you can buy shares in them and trade them up the wazoo and make billions of dollars if you're an insider trader and all of this kind of stuff, which is, by the way, illegal, so I wouldn't recommend it. So we talk about companies and corporations, but these aren't living entities. They are really an amalgam of people. And so, as much as we talk about companies and corporations, we're really talking about the people that interact within them. And so greed is at the core of malfeasance and misconduct. And I've said it before, you might remember, Jen, on a previous tapping session. When I use the term misconduct in relation to companies and various other things, the lawyers in the room will know that that's the trigger word to go to jail. And so misconduct is actually a very specific legal construct. And if you are found guilty of misconduct, and the challenge is to bring the case on through the legal system and then to be found guilty. But the general remedy for being found guilty for white collar crime misconduct is go to jail.
So I'm wondering, when did the ethics leave corporations? Because at one point they were considered ethical, right?
I suspect there's always been an undercurrent of greed, misconduct, and avarice on behalf of those that are at the helm of companies that basically monopolize resources on behalf of the collective. So, way back in the 1800s, even in England, back in the very early days of uh, defining what a corporation is and the legal status of it. But my sense, and starting in America, things began to go off the rails in the thinking process of an academic, a dude by the name of Milton Friedman, and um, and the Chicago School of Economics. Now, here's the thing: there is no actual Chicago School of Economics. What they mean by that is that there's a school of thought that evolved around Milton Friedman and some of his, cohort, presumably in Chicago. I don't know if there's any sort of place significance to that, but my sense is that that was really the starting point of things really going off track and off the rails.
So the point you're making is individuals think that they're helpless in regards to corporations, but we make up the corporations. That's why advertisement is $1 trillion industry, because our feedback and our agreement is important. So the SFT tapping things we do here is pulling our agreement out of the malfeasance of corporate greed, right?
Right. So absolutely. And here's the thing. We, you and I, and those people on the call, and collectively, I hope a whole bunch of other people who are interested in uplifting all of humanity, have a vision that corporations operate in a way that enhances the well-being of the individual, the wider community, and in fact the environment. And so there is a role for corporations. There has to be a role for corporations because they do make things that are useful for people in their daily lives, but they need to do it in a way that is uplifting to the individual, wider community, and in fact the environment, and not the pursuit of profit over purpose. I was coming back to the original Chicago School of Economics. The school of thought is that shareholder primacy. This is, the interests of the shareholders who basically own little bits of these companies that are the biggest companies in the world, have primacy over all other concerns. And what happens then with that absolutely fundamental, obscure notion is then those people that are, board members and executives in these companies do everything in the pursuit of profit, short-term profit, with the misguided view that that is, serving the interests of shareholders, and it might in the short term, but it destroys all of the ecosystem around these companies. And it is very myopic. It's very short-term focused. It's not actually a good way to run corporations.
Absolutely. And I think, like, at one time, people went into a certain vocation of a business because it felt like their passion and their purpose. And somewhere along the way, they deviated from that to just going where the money was. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you want to follow track misconduct and malfeasance, follow the money. And so everything, the root cause of all of the malfeasance and misconduct is a desire to game the system, make more money at the expense of others. So, which is why we're calling this transforming corporate greed, because greed on behalf of those people that are at the helms of these companies is the root cause of the malfeasance and misconduct. Now, greed and self-interest is not a unique concept to people in companies. And this is what I was saying earlier. Dealing with companies and corporations at the same time, we are dealing with a broader collective because these issues are deeply grounded and rooted in the broader collective. Greed, self-interest, the pursuit of power, and the advancement of the individual over the collective is, in fact, the root cause of pretty much all of the social issues around the world that we are doing these group tapping sessions on.
Now, I can imagine if corporations were what they tried to convey to us. Like, I remember commercials when I was a kid of how wonderful Exxon Mobil was, and well, it might not have been Exxon Mobil back then, but how they were like doing such great things for the environment. Imagine if they were really actually doing those things that they were saying they were doing in those commercials. How different the whole world would be.
Oh, absolutely. They've got a huge PR machine behind them, and most of the corporate PR stuff is just pure bullshit. And in fact, I'm glad you actually mentioned Exxon Mobil and others because let's put it this way: over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of these people at the pinnacle of corporate power have begun to realize that the broader population, the broader collective, pretty much hate them because they really aren't acting in the interests and the expectations of the wider community. And so, as part of that kind of softening capitalism and the pursuit of power and self-interest, there's a group formed in America called the Business Roundtable, and in 2019, I actually remember this because I was in the height of my corporate consulting career at that point. The Business Roundtable got together about 200 of the most powerful CEOs and board chairs of the largest companies in America to co-sign a statement on the purpose of the corporation. And basically, that statement was that the purpose of the corporation is broader than the interests of shareholders, and corporations have a duty to enhance the well-being of effectively the individual, the wider community, and the environment. Those are terms that I've coined, that I use pretty much in everything that I say about companies. But they use different language, but that's effectively what they said. Now, the funny thing, and that was 2019, the funny thing is that since then, there are at least a dozen or so of those CEOs that were the original co-signatories that are deeply embroiled in scandal after scandal after scandal. And I want to make a couple of dishonorable mentions here. So Jamie Dimon, right? Good on you, Jamie Dimon. He is one of the most, poster boy, corporate executives. He's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He mouths a whole bunch of platitude, but he and his organization are behind some of the worst corporate scandals going. And then there's Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook and a whole bunch of others who, they're mouthing the platitudes of this corporate roundtable statement on corporate governance, and then they just completely ignore it. And trust me, it is just a PR exercise. So what that says is that self-regulation doesn't work. And so we're going to address these issues in energy.
Thank you. Because I think of just someone like Elon Musk. At one point, I thought he was actually a genius, actually. And then if you study his history, he's just a male version of the Borg. Have you ever watched Star Trek? And there's this nemesis thing that just it finds all the individuals that have individuality and just gobbles them up and just accrues them as itself, and it becomes the Borg. I think he's and these other companies are kind of like Borgs in a way to humanity.
Yeah, they're definitely takers in that sense. I mean, in the early days, I thought of Elon Musk as a bit of a genius. But more recently, I think he's showing his true colors. And he's just straight up weird, misguided, and in fact dangerous. So Elon Musk, when you watch this, and I don't say if you watch it, when you watch it, you got to correct your course of action, because you will be on the wrong side of history. And what it is that you're doing ain't going to work. So there's that, just so you know.
So, it's interesting, like someone like Elon Musk, and I've seen it in other people who get really twisted at the top. I think they're looking for the upgrade that we're providing here, the energetic, how to go to higher consciousness. And they don't know how to do it. So they just make a lateral move, and then they get diverted into power and fear and corruption. So hopefully, Elon Musk, give me a call. I can set you straight on a few things and energy, because you're not all that, buddy. You're not all that.
Well, you said to me before that he's not straight. He's very twisted and distorted in energy. And yes, Elon Musk, when you do watch this, Jen will sort you out in energy. So, but, best to get sorted out by Jen than the alternative, which we're not even going to mention. So, yeah, you've got look, here's the thing. As much as we will be individually outing various people and entities from time to time, here's the thing. There is salvation. So as much as we're putting the finger on you in energy and holding you accountable, and I'll say more about accountability in a second, what that's doing is just giving you a wake-up call to say, you know what? I need to rethink what's going on here. There is salvation, and the salvation is to turn the ship around. And
yeah.
See, and the thing is, if you're not going to turn the ship around, the broader collective is going to do it for you. And so, you will be on the wrong side of history, trust me. The other thing I'd say is that anyone that is in a position of influence and power in the corporate world, and, we're talking about, finance companies as well. So, banks, financial institutions, that's where the change needs to happen as well. Um, take a look at take a look at all of the work that we're doing, because there's a broader based agenda that Jen and I and everyone on the call here is working towards, and that is the upliftment of all of humanity, universal empowerment. It is a very liberating mission and pursuit. Dealing with corporate greed is just one sliver of the many, many, many things we're dealing with. And so this is not a one trick pony thing. But the other thing is that I and others do actually have a vision, an uplifting and progressive vision for the future of the future paradigm of companies and how they interact in the broader collective to enhance the well-being of the individual, wider community, and the environment. So if that's something of interest to you and you're not just interested in corporate PR and platitudes, give me a call, genuinehealing.com. Just jump on the contact page, because there's a lot of work to be done. That's all I'd say on that. Can I just add some commentary at this level?
Please.
If you are ever confused about what the true source of wealth creation is, and I'm talking about wealth creation in the broader sense of things, but then also wealth creation for a company who is in business to do some things, the true source of wealth creation is creativity and innovation, and particularly the creativity and innovation of the people that create and design the products, the services, the way that they're delivered. That's how true wealth gets created. Creativity and innovation. Now, the really big companies suck at this because they are so up the ass in their corporate bureaucracy that they deplete the life and the zest of all the people within the organization. Large corporates truly suck at true innovation and creativity. So what generally happens, true creativity and innovation happens over there. Individuals, entrepreneurs, people with a spark of life, they create something and then it's immediately hijacked by the largest corporation, and then it's brought into their control. They monopolize it and then snuff it out. And it's a tragedy, it's a calamity.
You know what's coming to mind as we do this? Who is that person? Mackenzie Scott?
Mackenzie Scott.
Yeah, I get a sense she's looking intuitively. She's very intuitive. She's looking for what we're doing. She's trying really hard to find the answer, and she just hasn't found us.
Well, she will. By the way, for those that aren't familiar, Mackenzie Scott is the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, and in their divorce and settlement, she was awarded, I don't know how many billions, but she's an independently wealthy person, and she actually does have a conscience. And so it's not that surprising that she ditched Bezos, because he's probably the antithesis in energy of what she is. How they got together in the first place is beyond me. But anyway, she has the capacity to really transform and do good in the world. And there are others that have a giving aspect to them. The thing is that a lot of these, and I'm thinking about the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. There are
Melinda
others.
Gates.
There are others that are, using their wealth for good, social good. The problem is that they're addressing these issues at a very incremental. The term you use, Jen, is lateral moves, right?
Yes.
So if only they would apply their wealth, because we need resources, and their influence to get behind some of the things that we're doing here, even if they don't fully understand it, but just take a punt that, the work that's going on here is the seedbed of the salvation and upliftment of all of humanity, then we'd be all good to go. So yeah, Mackenzie Scott and any of the other wealthy billionaires that have actually developed a conscience, come and find us, because there's just so much to do and we could just use a little bit of help.
So can I just explain something? I don't want to be off base here, but taxing the rich, which has been a war cry of the rich to not be taxed. In energy, taxing the rich is like the only way to prevent them from having out of control wealth and then turning that power of that abundant wealth onto controlling individuals. We're seeing that now. They have such wealth that it doesn't make them pure souls. It makes them just needy, pathetic people.
Just a brief segue, Jen. So financial markets. So in particular, we're talking about Wall Street in America, but every country has its own hub of financial markets that trade, buy and sell shares in corporations. Were originally conceived to fund social endeavors, right? So back in the day, people would raise money so that to provide the resources to fund good, functioning, efficient social endeavors. What's gone wrong over the last at least 40 or 50 years is that Wall Street has become a force and an entity in its own right, disconnected from Main Street, which is what it's meant to fund. It's meant to fund the businesses that are what we call Main Street. But the thing is that now Wall Street is more important than Main Street, and it's a perversion, and that needs to get nipped in the bud real quick, because Wall Street needs to be the servant of Main Street, not the other way around. Earlier we said that the mindset of profit over purpose is part of the problem, and that's absolutely true. But even worse and amplified is chasing short-term profits over purpose and longer-term, the health and well-being of the corporation, let alone the well-being of the individual, wider community and the environment, is in fact the real egregious thing. And companies do it because the from bottom to top, the systems and structures in companies and the way that they think is all about maximizing short-term profits, so to pump up the share price, to serve the insatiable needs of shareholders, and fucks everyone else in the meantime. And Jen, don't even get me started on the role of the investment community in perpetuating all of this misconduct and money chasing bad investments, and the platitudes of companies, so investment firms that invest money in 401k plans and superannuation funds. They all have an enormous opportunity to do good, and they are all missing the mark, and they are all mouthing platitudes around ethical investments and ESG investing, and it's all bullshit.
So, you know what they're doing in energy? I mean, I don't know your world. I'm just looking at it from afar. In energy, what they're doing is they're harvesting the passion of individuals and groups of individuals who want better. So they're stoking, you can have this. They're dangling the carrot in front of them, and what they're doing is sucking them dry for their own corporate greed. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get back to my line of thought though, because that's kind of my wheelhouse, and that is that anyone that's at the head of an investment firm who invests money on behalf of the broader population in making investments in companies, give me a call, because I can help you do the right thing. It's not hard. I know how to do this. The problem is that no one that I've tried to engage on this topic, and in Australia, gives a shit, because they're making money hand over fist by doing nothing. And the thing is that they're on the wrong wicket, and so the investment community has a real opportunity to be the vanguards of change in the corporate and investment world. And even the most forward-thinking heads of investment firms that I've contacted. And ordinarily, these are people that, on at least on the surface, they're all admired and, for being very conscious and ethical in the way that they do things. Even they are not willing to actually step up to the plate because, from their perspective, it's just too hard. Why rock the boat? We're making a shitload of money. Just keep, keep the musical chairs running. I don't want to stop the music. So the parallel for that in the corporate world is that those that are still currently active in their corporate career are probably not the right people to drive change. And I suspect it's the really influential people that then run to the end of their corporate career but still retain influence where they don't give a shit anymore. In other words, what you were saying, Jen, I had to step out of the corporate world to reimagine and really engage with the corporate world on a broad-based agenda because, in my consulting environment, there were too many blockages and barriers to actually doing anything. So I actually think that the real salvation here is that those people of influence that they've made all the money that they need to ever make. They don't give a shit anymore. They're not interested in creating a family legacy. They then step away from that, day-to-day career path, and they then engage on this agenda. And if that's you, give me a call. It's very easy to get in contact with me. And if you don't know how to get in contact with me, you're not trying. I know it won't resonate with a lot of people. They'll roll their eyes up a little bit, but the work that we are doing here today is important to 8 billion people on the planet because in one way or another, the activities of the corporations impact you directly and personally. So it's important that we do this work. A couple of things that I'd say about a couple of these things. So, the last couple of taps where we were talking about being centered and empowered and in serving the wider community, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that look at that and go, man, that sounds like a socialist agenda. Screw that. But here's the important thing. If you don't serve the wider community, you cannot serve the interests of the corporation. So it's as simple as that. And one of the simplest things that every board needs to do right now, so to take a broad-based review of their operations right now, is to look at all of the major things that they're doing. And in each aspect of it, ask this fundamental question: how does the doing of this enhance the well-being of the individual, the wider community, and the environment? And if you can't answer that question, or you realize that the answer is, in fact, it doesn't enhance the well-being of the individual, the wider community, or the environment, you need to stop doing that, and you need to redesign your business model from the ground up to make sure that what you are doing does enhance the well-being of the individual, the wider community, and the environment. Because if you don't do these things, you will be irrelevant really quickly. And by the way, that was free advice.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, you'd be paid millions for that advice, but I've just given that to you for free. And by the way, if you want a hand doing that, give me a call because I actually know how to do this.
He really does, people, and it's so frustrating. I have dealt with celebrities, politicians, and everybody, and his energy to do this work, his integrity, his know-how, his wisdom, his respect, his physical prowess to do the work is beyond compare. I have read people's energy. I can't help it. And this man is the real deal.
All you need to do is take action. It's not that hard. The hard thing is the legacy problem. How do I'm making $1 billion selling sugary drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and how do I, wind that business down in a way, right? Because I've got, hundreds of billions of dollars invested in the production, distribution, and promotion of something which is fundamentally flawed. So, wow, I'm going to lose a shitload of money. By the way, here's the other thing. If that's your mindset, you're never going to make the change. But so you got one or two choices in this. You can either slowly lose money as you shift your business model and business paradigm into something that's more sustainable, or you can lose it instantaneously when your business is no longer relevant. Either way, it's going to get wound up, and you either do it in a controlled, deliberate way, or it will be taken from you. And the other thing that I would say, another great example of this is renewable energies. And so there's trillions of dollars invested in the infrastructure of fossil fuel generating, broad-based electrical distribution networks and so on. And those trillions of dollars are basically, in the longer run, a stranded asset. So the fact that you've spent trillions of dollars in the past to build this asset, it's not an asset anymore. It's actually a liability. And so you need to be spending, you need to be phasing out of those things, and you need to be spending. And this is the mindset that people need to get. You need to be spending trillions in the investment in the new economy, not just a few little million here, million there. We're talking trillions. And I'm sorry, corporate America, that you've got trillions invested in something which is a liability and a stranded asset. In the corporate world, we call this a stranded asset. It has no value anymore, regardless of how much money you pumped into setting it up. You're a dead duck. And so this is what's holding these business leaders, even the ones that want to do the right thing, although by and large they're mouthing platitudes. This is what's holding them into inaction. They're caught like a rabbit in the headlights. They don't know what to do, because on the one hand, they're trying to protect an asset, a failed asset, which they can't do. And they're spending so much of their thought process trying to work out, how do I preserve this trillions of dollars that's invested in a dead asset, and at the same time invest trillions of dollars in creating the new economy? And trust me, it can't happen that way. And by the way, the investment community, the Jamie Dimons and others in the investment community, you have a supreme responsibility, obligation, and opportunity to actually facilitate this transition and allow those dying assets to die, and to pump the trillions of dollars required to build the new economy, because that's your role, Wall Street. Your role, Wall Street, is to invest productive social endeavor, invest in productive social endeavor, not to profit off and make money on dead assets.
If you like this content and you appreciate the work that we're doing to uplift all of humanity and to help heal your body, mind, and soul, please consider becoming a Jenuine Healing premium content subscriber. Simply jump onto the Jenuine Healing website, jenuinehealing.com with a J, and click on the purchase button on the top menu. Scroll down, there's a premium content option. Click on that, sign up. It's a simple monthly plan for $20 a month, and you will have access to all of the premium content that we put up on the Jenuine Healing website. We look forward to catching you next time, and bye for now.